Today, you're going to hear from someone who was by no means a stranger to photography. She has multiple art degrees, including one in photography, but still couldn't quite figure out how to turn that into paid work. Stephanie was working full-time in higher education and still is, raising her kids and feeling like her creative career had stalled out. And if you're someone who already knows your way around a camera and sometimes wonder if a program like Pretty Focus is too beginner for you, I think you're really going to appreciate her story. In this episode, she shares how she discovered food photography for bloggers, what it looked like to go through the Pretty Focus program while working full-time, and how she started connecting with clients soon after graduating. So if you've ever felt capable but unsure how to actually turn your skills into income, this conversation is going to be a good one. Welcome to the Pretty Focus podcast. Hey, Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Melodee. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, why don't you tell us where you're from?
I live in the DFW area. I've been here about 3 years. Originally, I am from New Mexico.
Okay. I didn't know
and
that.
Moved to Texas just recently.
Okay. Well, when is recent? How recent did you move?
About 3 years ago.
Okay. So what was the reason for your move?
I got married and moved here. My husband is from here. But actually, we knew each other in high school. Yes.
Oh. Okay. I love that so much. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So why don't you tell us about your experience, with Pretty Focus? I love that you have a degree already in photography, right? And you're working in higher ed. So I don't want to give away your story too. I don't want to tell your whole story. So I'm gonna hand it over to you. Tell us what you were doing before Pretty Focused.
Well, so I have an undergrad degree in commercial art and marketing.
Okay.
And then I have degrees in painting and an MFA in photography. But when I finished with school, then I had 3 children.
Okay.
And I stayed home with them. And what happened is when you kind of stop that projection, and maybe I had stopped making art very much, I was very involved with the kiddos, you tend to get further away from a career and knowing where to go career-wise, right?
Yeah.
I taught art at my kids' school. I took photographs for their school. I worked on the yearbook. I did portraits for their school. So I was still involved in things like that, but it was never what I really wanted to do. I dabbled in portrait photography, but that involves dealing with people a lot. I would absolutely say that I am more of an introvert.
Okay.
And so that takes a lot of energy to be a portrait photographer. The physical energy, okay, but all the peopling is really hard.
Oh, so much peopling.
Yes, so much peopling. I had a cousin who is a food photographer. He's a professional food photographer, and I always envied. I thought, gosh, that's what I really wish I could have done, would have known how to do. How do I get into that? So my kids are all older. They're college age. 2 of them have graduated from college at this point. One shall be graduating this next year. So they're all off on their own.
Yeah.
And I started exploring, like, maybe I'm not too old for this. Maybe I can make a change. Because what happened when the kids got a little bit older and I found a job, I found myself in higher ed, which I love. I love higher ed. I've taught some digital photography courses at the college in New Mexico. And then currently in the DFW area, I am an advisor for graduate students. So I've worked in these roles for a long time. I appreciate the roles. I like working with students, but it doesn't feed my creative side
Sure.
right as much. So that's when I started looking at ways to uh, maybe make this happen.
Okay.
I will tell you that before Pretty Focused, I did enroll in a different kind of course
Okay.
that was supposed to be a course that was helping women find their fulfillment, move to a different job, be their own business owners. There were a lot of coaches. There were a lot of people who were marketing themselves in a way that I wasn't really familiar with.
Okay.
They were being coaches, or they were moving up to be consultants. And here I was in this creative field. And the best advice I got is, well, get yourself a portfolio together, and then basically you start cold calling people. And after a few months of that going through, I I quit the program. I said,
Oh
I can't
gosh.
do this. Like, I wasn't getting
Mm,
the creative support. Like, there were great ideas. There were great ideas about presenting yourself, but there weren't any ideas like how to actually find your audience. Not for me, at least.
yeah. So it's just like a very general, we're going to help inspire women to start their own businesses and do their own
Hmm.
thing. And a lot of inspiration, a lot of like general advice that's practical. Like, yes, you do need a portfolio. And
Hmm.
yes, you can cold call people, but isn't that, you can say that to anybody, right? Like anybody can
Right,
say that.
right.
So that was not helpful.
It
I'm
felt like a
sorry.
lot of,
I'm
that's okay. It
sorry.
felt like a lot. If you extrovert yourself enough, you're going to make it.
Oh, yeah.
And
Well,
so I wasn't figuring out how it wasn't getting me anywhere,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it was doing nothing but frustrating me even more, because it felt like I would try and try and try, and still I didn't quite know where I was going. And so I had
Okay.
given up on that, and I kind of thought, maybe this just is not meant to happen right now. Maybe I should just stay in higher ed. I'm good at my job. I know what I'm doing. Maybe someday when I retire, I'll revisit it. And then I saw some Pretty Focused ads on Facebook.
Woo, they work.
Yes, they work. And I looked at the pictures and saw that people were
Mm,
working from
mhm.
their homes and working with bloggers all across the US and other countries. And I thought, that's what I want to do. Uh,
Yeah.
so I scheduled a call with Lauren. Uh, I
I love
had
that.
a lot of questions for her because I already knew what wasn't working for me in a course. And I already knew photography enough that I wanted to see how this was different. I didn't want somebody to just teach me how to use a camera. I
Right.
wanted somebody to teach me the skills I needed to find the kind of clients I wanted.
Mm,
And that's exactly what Pretty Focus does. Now, it does
mm.
teach people to use a camera, right?
Absolutely.
It,
That's very
I've,
important.
yes, I've been super impressed by that. I've said that from the very beginning.
Mm,
After teaching digital photography, after working with students, your course absolutely helps anyone who perhaps hasn't picked up a digital camera before, or maybe a manual camera,
mhm.
and they want to learn these skills. It takes them through it in a way that they're manageable steps, they can grow on. The skills are very sequential, and it's
Yep.
super clear, right?
Oh, man, I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you for saying that. I love
Yeah,
that. That
it's
that
a
means a lot coming from
super
somebody
clear.
who teaches digital photography at, like, college level.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Wow. So, Pretty Focused helped you learn the skill and then helped you connect with clients
Yes.
too. Too.
Yes.
So, how long did it take you to go through the course?
It actually took me a year and a half. So when
Okay.
I first started, I had really big dreams about completing it very quickly. I thought I
Mm-hmm.
know my way around a camera. I already know how to use off camera flash. I have all the flash equipment. I have
Got it all.
everything I need. I already like to cook and bake. Let's do this. And then life happened, right? There were
Sure.
several things that happened along the way that there were some setbacks. My current job is very busy. I'll tell you, I still work full time in higher ed at this
Yeah.
time. I still work as a graduate advisor. And there were a lot of changes that happened at work that slowed my progress a bit. And so it took a year and a half.
Okay.
Um, I think, and I want to say this as well. I think the other thing that slowed my progress was myself and my confidence.
Okay.
The coaches were amazing and they would give such great feedback. But because I was only doing shoots on the weekends, usually, I would take the feedback I would get from the coaches and I would have so many days to think about it and think about it and think about it. And then what would happen is I would get to the next weekend and I would get very anxious about it, about
Okay.
starting the next shoot. And what's actually happened, I've seen a lot of growth since I've graduated the program. And you know, the reason why it's because I'm shooting so many times a week.
Mm.
I'm not, I am mostly shooting on the weekend, but I'm not shooting a project on the weekend. I might be shooting 3 or 4 projects on the weekend and editing, 3 or 4 nights a week. And so just that repetitiveness gives you that confidence of you know what to do, you know what your client wants, you know what you're looking for. And I think that if you're the student that can shoot several times a week, that's going to help give you that confidence a little bit quicker.
Yeah. So because you are, so I have a question. I know this is
Mhm.
live, this is recording. So I would love feedback. Do you think like as a student, would it be helpful to have, because we say, okay, go do your practice sessions, do your homework.
Mhm.
Homework is structured because we tell you what to do. But practice
Mhm.
sessions, we kind of let you go. So would it be more helpful as a student if your sessions had more structure where we said, okay, for your, do landscape ingredients or, a
Mhm.
landscape process and then, give me this many heroes. Like, for you just said that working with clients, you know what to expect. You have a little bit more structure to what and those expectations with your client. Do you think those expectations that your clients give you helps make you more confident? So like relating that back to being a student, would it be helpful to have clear expectations on your practice sessions? Does that make sense?
That does make sense. I'm thinking about that. You know, I feel, well, of course, one of the other strengths of the Pretty Focused program is your coach interaction. You
Yeah.
guys give individualized feedback consistently and quickly, and you interact with your students. Um, I feel like I was led to continually strengthen the skills that the food bloggers would be asking for.
Yeah.
I think that there were times when every once in a while I was like, wow, can somebody just show me exactly what they mean? But I also think that your coaches present what a student is ready to hear at the place they're ready to hear it
Oh,
at
that's
the
so
correct
good.
time. Like if you would have told me things that I heard in portfolio when I was on my second or third week, I may have not known how to process that. I think your coaches are really good at helping a student build on their skills.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. You know, to a degree, photography is art. And one of the biggest questions I used to get from young artists is they would say, how do I find my style? How do I develop my style? When is my style going to be here? And
For
the best
sure.
thing I could tell them is you keep working and trying different things. And then one day your style just develops. And so I think that by letting us explore and try different things, you're kind of also helping guide students to find what their style is. There's the room
Agreed.
to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, because we don't want to ever want somebody to be like to be stifled. Well, why do I have to do it like this? Why does,
Right.
people used to ask me all the time, why do I have to do the triangle? And it's like, well, now I think we explain because we're working on like food centered photography. And so you
Hmm.
do want the food centered. We're not focused on the full scene. Like you have to remember who the food blogger is, but your style and everything else, like please develop that. Food bloggers want
Hmm.
you to develop that. So we kind of give you the guidelines. You're right. And then let the student kind of build it in their own way, as long as it fits in with what we know food bloggers are going to want. So
Right.
that's good. All right. So once you graduated, going back to your graduation took you 16 months to go through. When you graduated, how long did it take you to connect with clients?
So in the Buyers Club, I'm thinking probably about a month
Okay.
before I found my first client. I did sell a couple of my portfolio pieces, and then it took about a month to get the first recreation client. No, I take that back. It took about 2 weeks to get the first recreation client. And then
Okay.
there was another one um, within a month after that.
Okay.
Now, I'll have to say that where I am right now, what I would like to do is I like to work with recreations.
Okay.
I've done some exclusives as well. Um, but for me, I think that looking at some future plans and maybe planning a blog and the kind of things that my husband and I want to do, we're kind of
Love that.
holding some of those recipes a little close. The
Sure.
first couple that we sold and we saw them go out, we're like, oh, well, that's cool, but I really liked that. It was mine. So
Yeah.
I like recreations. I really like working with bloggers who tell me what they want. And that's the kind of work I'm looking for right now. So it took me a couple months.
Okay.
I have two clients that I have been working with since then,
Okay.
specifically. And then somehow about a month ago, I I think they saw my Instagram feed. I had a marketing agent reach out to me, and there's a commercial client I'm working with as well.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that
That's
was pretty exciting.
amazing. That is so
Yeah.
cool. Wow. So when you got into the Buyers Club and you were announced, like, what was that whole experience like? Were you happy with the pace at which you were able to connect with clients? Did you feel like, what the heck am I doing? Like, do you feel like you were set up for success in the Buyers Club?
I feel like I was set up for success, but I still was a little bit in the what the heck am I doing? I am not.
That's totally
So
fair.
it's the business side of it that I
Sure.
feel like I am not quite yet where I want to be,
Okay.
that I'm still struggling to make the structure that I want. Part of that comes from the fact that I still work full time.
Yeah.
And so I have this plan that I think I'm going to leave my other job. I have a plan, but that's pretty scary, right?
Sure.
Like I don't know for sure how it's going to work out.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you felt like you almost essentially like you leapt into the Buyers Club, like I'm just doing it, and then I'm kind of going to figure it out as I go. Like I have a plan, know what I want. Not exactly sure how I'm going to get there. Is that kind of how you feel like you started in there?
Yes, I
Just
felt
kind
like
of
I
see
was
what
still
happens.
growing. Yes, felt
Okay.
like I was still growing. There's a lot
Sure.
of people doing exclusives on the Buyers Club, all these amazing exclusive recipes. So I
Yeah.
tried a couple of those. But I found that I like working the recreations because I like the direction from the client.
Yeah.
I spend so much time. Uh, my husband helps a lot developing the recipes, and we spend so much time developing these recipes. We do a lot of savory stuff, but I actually like to work with um, clients that I do baking for.
Okay.
And so we kind of want to keep those savory recipes for ourselves and possibly a blog one day. And
Which I love. I love that's great.
yeah,
I love that you're thinking like years down the road and you're already setting goals of like what can I turn this into? Like you're really getting your feet wet right now. You
yeah.
know what I mean? And just learning what it is that you like to do
Mhm.
and where your greatest area is and then planning on goals for you and your husband down the road. That's
Yeah,
so cool that you guys are doing it together. How fun is that?
it's fantastic. He's been a great support in all of this, and he's a very he's an amazing cook in his own right, and he comes up with recipes that I could not. He's much better at the recipe
Oh,
developing
that's
than
so
I am.
cool.
So
That's
yeah.
so cool. So you graduated and I see here too in our notes as I
Mhm.
just glanced down that you actually had somebody reach out to you while you were still in the course.
I
Is that
did.
right?
I sold one even before I got to portfolio. I had a blogger who had gone through Pretty Focus before, and they purchased one of my, so it was heroes only.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so that was like a perfect boost of confidence right about the time I needed it. The course, as you're through it, you kind of ebb and flow. You think, hey, I'm doing really great. I'm doing really fantastic. And then you have a couple of weeks where you feel like nothing goes right. I remember this, I had like 3 weeks in a row. And you have to remember, I was only shooting on the weekends.
Mhm.
I wanted to shoot these Oreo cream brownies that I have made for years,
So
like
good.
probably 20 years. And every single time I baked them for 3 weeks in a row, something happened and they didn't turn out.
Oh my
And,
gosh.
it's more than just the photography. When you're trying to bake some brownies that you've made forever and you can't even make those work right, you think,
Yeah.
wow, what on earth am I doing?
Yeah. I mean, there is a little bit more pressure there with this
Hmm.
because it's like, you make something for your family and you're like, "Oh, well, it'll still eat." Like, like we'll still enjoy it. But when it comes to like like recipe photography, you you have to you got to make it look good. You
Right.
got to know what you're doing. You really
Just a little
do.
bit of pressure.
Oh my, so what did you do then with that recipe?
I ended up doing it again, but I didn't end up putting it in my portfolio. I ended up finally doing it again at the very end of portfolio, but I didn't submit it. I just wasn't exactly super happy with it. But
Okay.
that's okay. Sometimes you have to set things aside. You have to learn to set something aside and move on. You have to
Mm,
be willing to learn from mistakes. You have to be willing to move on when something doesn't work, right? You can get
right.
hung up on stuff and then you just stay there.
Are you creating recipe content but leaving video on the table? Whether you are a food photographer and you want to increase the amount you make per shoot, or you're a food blogger and you want to increase your traffic and boost engagement, food video will change everything. Inside our food video masterclass, you are going to learn how to plan, shoot, edit, and deliver mouth-watering videos that will increase your income and your engagement. Work smarter, grow faster. Click the link in the description to learn more. So,
Yeah.
somebody who's in higher ed, you've taught photography, you're in the creative field, right? I would love for your insight on this because we do run into this where people just they want to get done and they don't want to take the extra effort to make that recipe one more time. Like, you had that recipe, and I'm just impressed that you were like, that doesn't make the cut. Like, you know what I mean? Some people would just be like, yeah, throw it in there. Walk me through your thought process, and what advice do you have for people who are at the end and they just want to get done. They just want to cross that finish line and are just like, this is what I got.
Mhm.
This is what I'm going to submit. I know I could be better, but this is what I'm going to give you. What
Mm.
advice, what do you have to say? How would you encourage somebody who's in that, in that portfolio, and they're like, I just take this. This is what I have. This is the best. I'm not going to do any more than this.
That's a tough one, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of it depends on personality. I'm really tenacious and stubborn and a really hard critic of myself.
Yeah.
But I think that always looking from the client's point of view, thinking about how a client is going to look at what you present them and what they might say. Have somebody else look at it, a good friend, maybe shut your computer and open it back up again the next morning before you hit submit and decide, if you're wavering. There have been several times where I've thought that a shoot was pretty good, but then something about it felt off to me. And I shut it down and put it away, looked at it the next day, and was able to see what that was. One of my very first clients, the way I got both clients is they advertised in the buyers club that they were interested in somebody doing baking recreations for them.
Oh, I
And
love
I
that.
reached out to both of them. What happened in that situation was both of them said, sure, let's try out a recipe and see how things go. Let's see how we work together. And one of them, the very first recipe I did for them, I worked so hard. I think I made it twice and it still didn't turn out how I wanted it to look. And I would think I was going to bake it a third time that day and decided to leave it for the next day. Think about it, really, really think about, look at the pictures again, decide what I wanted to do, decide how I felt like the client would feel about it looking at them. And the next day I opened it up and thought, this is my one chance to maybe have a continuing relationship with this client. I'm going to redo it and make sure that it looks like what I think that blogger would like. I think looking at it from the client's point of view is helpful. I
Yeah.
think also, and this is a tough one. I think you have students say this all the time, but I'll say it one more time. The coaches and Pretty Focused, they are immersed in the field. They know what food bloggers want. When they give you feedback about something, not only are they being kind, but they're actually giving you these magical tips that, I mean,
They
they know
really
what
are.
bloggers want, because then, they may tell you, like, over the course of 3 homeworks that you turn in, you got to try to get this, you got to nail this, we really need that. And guess what happens is then when you turn photos into a blogger and a blogger says, that's exactly what I was looking for. It's because you learned it and Pretty Focused that that's what they wanted. So
Is that
listening
what
to
your client said to you?
there are things, yes, that they've told me different things that's exactly what I wanted. I want the yum factor. This is what I want. I like to be able to see the textures. Um, I like somebody to be able to describe what the food must taste like by looking at the pictures. I really like those close up photos like
Yeah.
this. All of the things that we talked about in the Pretty Focus course, that's
That's
what
what your
these
clients are
bloggers are
saying.
often very pleased with. And,
Yeah.
so you turn in a set of photos, and bloggers usually only post a few of them, right? And so that's kind of a fun game you get to play, is you get to say, well, I really, really like this one. I think this is what they're going to like. And when you start seeing those likes match up, knowing what they want, knowing what reactions they're trying to get. That's
That's awesome.
yeah, that's a cool thing.
That's really awesome. I love that you're paying attention to what they post too. And then you just get better each time and you just deliver even more of what they want, right? Just consistently deliver. Like, I know what she likes. Those are the photos that she picks. So I'm really going to make sure to hone in on that and master that because that's what she likes. That's what her readers respond to. That's what's going on Pinterest or Google, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So I love that you're like circling back and you're observing to what your client is
Yes.
posting. And like
Yeah.
like you said, I think you make that prediction and whenever you're right, you're like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's such a good feeling. So yeah, I love that you're like pause and remember that like with your portfolio, that's something clients see first before they ever get to know you,
Mm-hmm.
before
Yeah.
they ever have a conversation with you. They're looking at your portfolio. So you
Mm-hmm.
really have an opportunity there to stand out and they're going to see who's rejected good for great, right? And
Mm-hmm.
because it does come across in your work.
Yeah.
I've seen it. You know what I mean? I've seen people throw stuff together haphazardly or say, well, I didn't have a lot of time to do this, but this is what I got. And it's like, oh man, if you were to give that to a client, or if I had somebody that I was hiring and they were like, I didn't have a lot of time, threw this together, here you go. I'd be like, well, thanks for that. You know,
Right.
I don't know. As a business owner, I wouldn't be thrilled if somebody just
No, I'm
threw it
afraid they
together.
wouldn't have any recipes for me the next month.
Probably, yeah, probably. Probably. Yeah. All right. So, what are some things other than like you've got goals for a food blog later on in the
Mhm.
future, you know, you're teaming up with your husband. What are some things that Pretty Focused has allowed you to do already? And what do you think it will allow you to do in the future?
It's allowed me to be creative. It's allowed me to have a job that is a lot of fun. I love to do it, even when
Mhm.
they're frustrating. Everybody has a frustrating part of their job, right? I enjoy it. I
Yeah.
really enjoy it. It's given me. Okay, here's a funny one. I did a lot of montage work when I was
Okay.
in photography school. I did a lot of Photoshop. Um, I try to be open to new processes and new things that coaches or teachers might tell me. The whole Lightroom thing and the different workflow, it's much different than I'd worked with before.
Mhm.
And I'm excited to say that I loved being able to master that new workflow, being able to batch a bunch of photos and make them very cohesive. Work in Lightroom. I still do take things into Photoshop every once in a while if I want to clean it up. But then I bring it back into Lightroom, look at everything as a group and how they work together, how to process them all together, how to bring them back into Lightroom and make sure they're just really cohesive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
I've appreciated that skill. Like
yeah.
I feel like I work a lot faster as I had to move away from, doing the fine art photography. You could spend hours and hours and hours on a photo. And that took me a while to kind of move away from that super focused on one image and to look at a group of images and how to edit them together and edit a little bit quicker and turn out a batch of photos. And I'm proud of learning how to do that now. I've enjoyed learning that skill and being able to use it.
Yeah, I love that. So you're enjoying that technical side of things too.
Hmm. Yeah.
The technical creativity, creative technical,
Yeah.
I don't know how you would describe it, but it is true that you are not just working on a single photo, you are working on a set of
Hmm.
25 photos.
Right.
And so with that, it's you don't have, I don't have hours to spend on every single photo.
No. Mm-mm. I
Yeah.
would
So I
find
love
myself wasting a lot of time doing that. And I've
that. Oh
gotten
yeah.
to where editing sessions go a lot quicker now.
Good. You just
Um,
overthink every little detail.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I've loved that. I've always loved composition. I feel like Pretty Focus has given me, you get to play with composition a lot. I really
Mhm.
find it a challenge that variety versus
Variation.
variation.
Yeah.
I love to make variety. I love to really work things around and try to make each photo, even though it's the same food, look different. That each photo I'm submitting to a blogger, they could perhaps put side by side. That's a lot of fun to me. And
Yeah.
so doing that is just a joy. And eventually, I hope to, like I said, I think I'm close to maybe not working full time as an advisor anymore. I want to be really close. I try to be careful about how many clients I'm taking on right now because I only have so much time to devote to it. Um, so that's the next step. That's where we're at.
Yeah, that's going to be hard because you need time to take on more clients,
Hmm. Hmm.
which is challenging, but in order to leave you need more clients. Right.
Exactly.
So that is like the challenge of like, okay, how are you going to make this, how are you going to make that transition? How are you going to make it work? How many recipes do those clients give you each month? So how many are you photographing?
So currently, right now, most months I am doing about 14 recipes a month, between 14 and 15.
Holy cow. That is a lot
So
for somebody who's also working full time as an advisor. Holy moly.
it is. I don't have any kids at home. We have two dogs. I do look forward to doing this full time and reclaiming my weekends. That would be fantastic. Right
Yeah.
now, like weekends, this is what I do. That's what my
Yeah.
friends and family ask me now. They're like, "What are you baking this weekend? What are you cooking? What are you making?" Uh, the other people in my office at the school that I work at, they just wait for Monday morning to come. And what is Stephanie bringing? Is it cake? Is it cookies? How many kinds of cookies is she bringing? I've
Oh
had Mondays
my
where I
gosh.
go in and they're like, "You didn't bring cookies? What's happening?"
Oh my goodness gracious. What has your family, like you said your husband was very
Mhm.
supportive of you. Like what do your kids think? What do your friends think about what you are doing right now?
I have friends that have known I want to do something like this for a long time. And so they think it's fantastic. Um,
Good.
there have been others that are a little bit more dubious. They get all the kinds of questions that I know that you get when people are talking about photography for food bloggers. I
Oh
get the
yeah.
whole, is that a real job? Oh, well, that's fun. Do they pay you well for that? Um, do you have to make the food? What do you do with the food afterwards? Just a lot of questions that they just can't quite get the concept or understand the concept of what maybe I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh I thought that they took their own photos. Don't they just use a cell
Right.
phone? Yeah, all of those
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
I
Or,
get every
and how
single
do you
one of
find
those questions.
clients? Like,
Yeah.
how do you find these people? What do you mean you're working for somebody across the US? How did that happen? How do you talk to them? How do you deliver your stuff?
Oh my gosh.
So
Yeah, all
yeah.
these practical things. Yes, I get every single one of those questions. You're right. You're right. And you're like, it's real. It happened. We train, we coach, we connect them.
Yeah.
They're there, they're hiring. And so now that you're doing it, yep, you can make money doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's so cool. Well, do you have any advice, any encouragement you want to leave with our listeners before we wrap up this episode?
For photographers, I would say follow what you really want to do. I tried for a long time. I've done seniors, I've done weddings, and I was okay at that, but I was always left feeling exhausted. So if you
Mm,
know there's a creative avenue that you want to do, find your niche and work at it for a bit and see what happens, right? Like there really is a way to make money and connect with clients where you get to bake food and make food and take photographs of it, right? And you
yeah,
get to do that all within your home. But also make sure you like to do dishes, right? Because there's a lot of those, a lot of dishes. I'm
there
also
are a
very good
lot of
at that.
dishes.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah. Make sure you start the day with an empty dishwasher.
that's right.
Just throw it all in there. Oh,
And
I
it's
love
not
that.
too late to start. And it's also, I would just really encourage anybody who's looking at different photography courses, who's saying, well, I've never done this before. I I've been very happy with the Pretty Focus course. And you guys don't stop your support when you've graduated.
Mm,
And working in higher ed, that's a big trend we see nowadays, even with students in more traditional avenues of education, is that um, something that advisors and universities have been working on a lot in the most recent times is how do we support students while they're in school to get them to be ready to be employees later. You know, internships are important, or helping them meet with clients, or knowing how to talk to clients, or um, how do we get
yes.
them actually seeing what they will be doing if they get an engineering degree, right? We don't want to just
Yes.
say, congratulations, here's your degree, and then they go off, because that's what happens so often is that students get an education and they don't always know what to do with that afterwards, how to get a
Absolutely.
job, how to make connections, how to get experience. And for an online education avenue like this, where you guys are in a very particular niche of photography,
Yeah.
you guys give a lot of support afterwards
Mm,
to um, have grads ask questions of you or of each other, to connect with bloggers, to be able to um, talk to a like-minded group of people, to help problem solve, to look at continuing education. I want to do the video, the masterclass next, because I've
yes.
already had people asking about that. So that continuing education, you guys don't just have one thing that you have, you offer ways for
Yeah.
your graduates to build on their skills as well. So um, yeah,
I'm
it's
so
worth it.
glad. Oh, I can't wait for you to take the food video masterclass. That's
Yeah,
going to
I'm
be great. That'll
excited.
be great for whenever you have your own blog.
Yes, exactly.
I love that. I love it. I think it's so cool. First of all, that you see that and you recognize that, because that's just there's just no reason you can't do life
Mm-mm,
alone, and I don't think you can do business alone.
no.
And I think it's really important to have that community aspect there,
Mhm,
but we do want people to be able to continue to grow and develop. We don't want to ever stop growing, right?
mhm.
Those are our values, is to reject good for great, never
Yeah.
stop growing, and to show your passion. And so those are things that we want to just continue to do as individuals, as community members. And so I think it's really important. So I'm so glad that you are part of our graduate community now.
Thank you.
and
So am I.
and thank you so much for the encouragement that you just shared with everybody, because I think it's so needed, so
Well,
needed.
thank you.
So yeah, well, Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us today. You guys, I really hope that you enjoyed this episode. I know I learned a lot from her. It was really great to hear your story, to hear where you're going, the goals that you have set, and I can't wait to see you accomplish them. And I can't wait to get that email that says that you're going full time.
Yes, that'll be very exciting.
I'll be waiting for that email. That's awesome.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Stephanie. You guys, we'll see you back here next week for another episode of the Pretty Focused podcast.